So you may all be wondering what I've been doing the past month, 2 months, maybe a month and a half that I've been gone. And the fact of the matter is, and I'm going to be completely honest, is I haven't done jack. I've been here at home, I've been chilling. But what I've been waiting for most of all is because I built this. Take a look at it, ladies and gentlemen. Bask in its glory. All points, no quills, no pillows. Look at that, it looks like 2 balls in a bong. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, if you couldn't tell by the new emote images things I use with my Animal Crossing character, I now have like an actual desktop PC. Now, you want to know what I was using before in case you didn't know back then? This was it. This was what made all those other videos for like the past 2 years. This 2013 MacBook Pro is what got this channel running, essentially. If it wasn't for this thing, I don't know how many memories I wouldn't have made with this. Like, we got Minecraft on there. We got a lot of the other projects on there. We even hooked up a capture card to this thing to get my Xbox. But yeah, this was what pretty much ran the channel for the time being. Now, I would have loved to absolutely record the whole building process with this new PC that I made, but me, being the very intelligent person that I am, completely forgot to hit the record button when we were building this, because if I forgot to press the record button, you think I'd be capable of building this thing on my own? I had to have a friend of mine over, like my best friend of mine here, come in and help me build this thing, and we did a damn good job because we got this thing running first try. But yeah, this is in no way a tutorial, but if you are interested in maybe using the parts that I used, the link will be in the description below for my PC builder list. And bear in mind, I don't have a GPU on this thing yet, so all of this, like the reason I haven't even made a Sea of Thieves episode is because this doesn't have a GPU on it yet. So, that in mind, GPU is completely up to you if you want to if you want to follow my build, my list. So, like the most basic of GPUs I recommend for this thing has to be at least an RTX 3060. But if you want to go budget, you can always go for a GTX. I would also go for like an RTX 20 series because that's doing all right. But under no circumstances should you waste your money on the 3050. That should be a given. But yeah, let's hop on the video and I'll tell you the parts I got and why I chose them. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Now, before I get into the specs of the motherboard, I need to distinguish 2 different kinds. So first off, there's the motherboard that has no Wi-Fi, which means you can't use like any wireless internet connection at all on it, and you'd have to get a separate, chip, like a chip or like a Wi-Fi card to be able to connect to the internet wirelessly. Now, the version of the motherboard I got is actually just, the exact same as one that wouldn't have Wi-Fi on it, but it has Wi-Fi. So what I went with is the Asus TUF Gaming B550 Plus Wi-Fi. Now, when I went and got this from my local Micro Center, which you should totally do that, also not sponsored, they didn't have the regular ATX sized motherboard, so I had to just go with the B550M, which actually didn't impact me as bad as I thought it would be. Mainly because now it just makes cable management a lot easier than I thought it would have gone. But overall, I mean, I'm pretty satisfied with this motherboard. It's not too bad. It has some pretty good neat stuff, and my computer runs really well, so I'm not complaining there. But yeah, I would recommend a Wi-Fi motherboard just in case you don't have easy access to an Ethernet port. But here at my desk here at home, I'm literally like right next to the internet router, so I can just plug in an Ethernet cord if I wanted to, and I do just because it's there and might as well. But when I take this to the university, when I go back to school in August, I'm not going to have easy access to an Ethernet port, so it's nice to have the Wi-Fi aspect there as well. As for the processor, I went with, a recent CPU, but it's pretty decent and it's great for me because this saves me money on a graphics card that I can get later on. So I went with an AMD Ryzen 5 5600G, and it's a 6-core processor. It's not too bad. I'm not complaining with it. I've played quite a number of games with this thing. I played Black Ops 2, Plutonium, played GTA, Sea of Thieves on it so far. The only downside is that I can't record because it doesn't really have that good of like an encoding process in there. So really it's just like a low-end GPU essentially integrated into the processor. But it really does help you out a lot when you are saving up to get a good one like an RTX 3060 or something. Because right now you have to give an arm and a leg to even get a GPU at the moment. So yeah, that's currently what my CPU situation is looking like. But once we get to the GPU portion of it, I'll explain a bit more clearly how this all works, and maybe yeah, just like for the most part, just do your research when you're looking at a CPU and GPU, because it really does help a lot. Just don't sell a kidney to get a goddamn GPU. Please don't. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, as for the RAM that I went with, I ultimately went with a 32GB kit, which I know is a bit overkill for a build that's, you know, kind of meant to be a budget sort of thing, but I mean, not only do I just like edit stuff, but I also work on video projects like the Sea of Thieves series and whatnot, so I can upload them to YouTube. And because of how weak my old MacBook, I want to say was, but I still use it, so I mean, because of how weak it is, considering it's like almost a decade-old laptop, you know, I needed something a bit more powerful, and, you know, I needed something, you know, extra swole to handle the stuff I want to do on it, especially considering that I want to use this PC to stream as well. So, of course, I had to go with the 32GB kit. It's not actually that bad, considering I spent like $120 on it, so it's not too bad. I went with the DDR4 3600 megahertz, kit. So yeah, you always want to make sure that the RAM speeds are correct, because you don't want to be running like 2100 megahertz RAM speed when you first build it. So always check on your BIOS and see if XMP is on. But yeah, I mean, overall the RAM I'm using is pretty good. I haven't had any issues with it. It's been running alright. And yeah, as for memory, I went with a 1TB M.2 SSD from Intel, which was actually pretty decent for my budget. I actually got it at about, I think, $70 for the M.2. So M.2s essentially are really good because these are like ridiculously fast memories in comparison to like 2.5 inch SSDs. So if you're looking to be a bit more, you know, flexible with your budget, I'd recommend getting at least, you know, 500 gigs when it comes to M.2 storage. And then maybe down the line you can get a 1TB SSD and you can just attach it to your case, essentially. But yeah, this is pretty much what I'm running here. Like I said, I have a few games installed on this, so it really does help to have all that storage. And not only that, but having a lot of storage means I get to make a lot more videos on here. So, you know, easy win-win here for me. But yeah, let's move on to the next bit. Next, we have the PC case and essentially the fan aspect of this. So here I'm going to be covering the case, as well as the additional case fans that I bought and the CPU fan that I'm using to make sure the CPU is cool. So let's start step by step here. PC case. I went with the Fractal Design Meshify C in the white color, mainly because based on, you know, reviews I've seen of this case. Also, I kind of really like the design as well. Not only because there's like a lot of really good airflow going through this case, but also because of the sleek front panel design. So, you know, it's really nice to have that nice airflow to it, because then I don't overwork my CPU or my fans when it comes to making sure that cold air comes in and hot air goes out. So yeah, I mean, this case is really nice. There's a good amount of expansion for it, so I could add like, I think about 3 2.5 inch 2.5 inch SSDs in there, as well as some 3.5 inch hard disk drives. So yeah, it's not bad. It's pretty good. I like the design of it. You know, you know how I have it set up here on my desk. It actually looks really nice, and you know, can't wait to have the GPU on it finally, so it can look complete. But yeah, overall, I'm liking it. As for the fans, I went with Deepcool RF 120. I think these are the 120 millimeter fans. Essentially, these are compatible with my motherboard's RGB headers, so I can customize the lights however I want. I got these at like $30 when I bought it, so it's not bad. I like it a lot. Fans really give, you know, the PC a bit of personality when it comes to looking at like the colors and how they switch around, the different color modes that there are. So I really enjoy these fans. They're pretty good for the most part. I mean, I haven't had any issues with them. They've kept my computer pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, they work like a charm. They're pretty good. Not too shabby there. The case came with 2 case fans, just only 2 of them though, but it's recommended that you have like at least 2 so you can make sure that you have an intake and an outtake. But I was like, oh, maybe I should like get more case fans so that I could get better airflow out of this thing, so that's why I kind of went with it. So there's a total of 5 fans attached to the case now. As for CPU cooling, I'm just using the stock cooler that came with the CPU in the box, so it's the Ray Stealth cooler. Essentially, yeah, it's just a normal fan. There's nothing special about it. It came with the CPU. I've heard good things about it. I mean, I don't see why, you know, you shouldn't use it if you want to save money for an AIO at some point in the future. But yeah, using the stock fan is always a good idea. There's like no judgment with that. So if you're looking for a decent cooler, just stick with the stock fan until you have enough money to get the AIO. Oh my god, I can't speak. But yeah, that's pretty much what's going on with the case at the moment. So yeah, I mean, get more case fans if needed. But you know, for my purposes, considering that, you know, this is a good like mesh case, and I wanted it to look nice, I wanted to go with some RGB fans on here. So Deepcool isn't that bad. I'd go with it. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for this section. Now, as I've said earlier in the video, I don't have a GPU running on my PC at the moment. Now, that's not because, you know, I want it like that. Like, I want the computer to be like that. Like, to not have a GPU, but because it's so hard to get one right now. Like, sure, GPU prices are getting lower, but, you know, the lower they're getting, the more people are wanting to get it. Now, I know it's going to get easier because the rumor has it that this year there's supposed to be the RTX 40 series and the AMD Radeon RX 7000 series of GPUs, which is great because that means that, you know, RTX 30 series is about to get a flood of GPUs in the market again. And crypto isn't doing too hot with the Ethereum going on. So right now I'm just saving up to get a GPU, honestly, because I'm like flat broke. I spent most of my money trying to get the parts on this thing. Just like the main components of it before they sold out at my local Micro Center. But as for GPU choices, I think would be okay for this PC. I personally want to get an RTX 3060, at least an RTX 3060, mainly because I want to use this computer for streaming, video editing, and gaming. So more or less, it's gonna work all right. Like, I've already tried out some games on this with just the integrated graphics that the processor has, and it works decent. But I can't record with it, so of course I'm gonna need a GPU to be able to record properly, record well, and do nice live streams. But for video editing, what I have so far is actually really good. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm actually using this computer to even edit this video right now. And I even edited the last video, the collection of clips video, with this computer. So it actually, the way that video turned out was really good. I mean, I could even, with like a proper GPU, I could probably even start rendering videos at 4K if I wanted to. Anyway, like I was saying, like the base GPU I want to use for this thing has to, like, I want it to be like at least an RTX 3060. I know there are cheaper options out there. There's the RTX 20 series, there's the GTX series, and you know, there's RTX 3050, but really RTX 3050 is like the most basic out of the 30 series because that's like the lowest of the low. Now, if you want to go with an RTX 3050, I recommend you don't. And from what I've seen, I've heard that the RTX 2060 is actually doing a lot better than the 3050. So if you want to go RTX and you don't want to go with the 3050, go with the 2060 or wait till 3060 prices go down. As for AMD GPUs, I personally don't really like AMD GPUs as much because, you know, one, because I've never used AMD GPUs before, and second, because I have more, you know, history with NVIDIA graphics cards, mainly because I've worked with on computers with, you know, NVIDIA graphics cards, graphics before. So really, you know, I just have more, you know, I'm like more used to NVIDIA graphics essentially. I'm not sure about AMD. You know, I've never actually dove into AMD as much. I've mainly been on like Intel and whatnot because my MacBook was Intel, my last laptop was Intel. Most of the computers I've had in the past have been Intel, so I'm not really entirely sure about AMD. But based on what I've seen with the integrated graphics on this processor, it is actually not that bad of an investment. If you want to go with AMD, go for it. I mean, it's a pretty decent GPU. For a build like this, an RX 6600 would be pretty good because the prices are actually getting really close to MSRP. So if you want to go with an AMD GPU, go for it. But just because of my preference, I want to put in an RTX on this thing, have ray tracing on it, and, you know, that deal. Now comes the fun part of this section, because this is a part where you get to choose what operating system you want to put on the computer. Now, I know there's Windows 11 out there, and believe me, like, I wanted to upgrade to it, but I haven't heard a lot of good things about it. One, because, you know, you can't, like, not a lot of computers can upgrade to it, and two, because there's so much stupid crap on there now that, like, you can't really deal with it as much as you can with on Windows 10. So what I'm doing now is I'm kind of waiting for Windows 11 to get fixed up and get optimized and whatnot for gaming a lot better, because at the moment it's not that good. And also, like, literally a few days before I was supposed to build this with my friend, I was like, hey, should I like get a Windows 10 installation media, or should I get a Windows 11 one? And she told me Windows 11 is pretty terrible, and that I should stick with Windows 10. So I got essentially Windows 10 Pro on this computer, knowing that Windows 11 needs to get better at some point soon, so I can upgrade to it. But this motherboard is actually compatible with Windows 11. If you go to your local Micro Center or wherever else you get parts from, the box usually has a sticker on it that says Windows 11 ready. So that's essentially how you know that this computer is capable of running Windows 11. And if you run PC Health Check after you set it up, and to see if you are compatible with Windows 11, you might as well just give it a check just to see, you know, because this does have TPM, this does have Secure Boot enabled. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole gist of it. However, because I'm going to be posting my the link to my PC part picker list in the description, you are going to notice one compatibility issue that is listed on this part list, and the only compatibility issue that it spat out was a BIOS firmware issue. So essentially what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that this processor that I'm using, the AMD Ryzen 5 5600G, it was not originally compatible with this motherboard. So depending on when you get it, whether you get it from a seller used, or whether you get it new from Micro Center or Best Buy or wherever else they sell this motherboard, sometimes you'll need to update the BIOS before you install the CPU, just to make sure that the CPU will be compatible with the motherboard. Now, thankfully, I didn't have to do that because it worked first try, but it is recommended before you start building that you update the BIOS to the latest firmware. So just keep that in mind. I know for a lot of people, especially first-time builders, it's not going to be like easy to mess with something like that, considering how if you do, say, mess up updating it, like you unplug the USB while it's still updating, or the power goes out, the BIOS is going to corrupt, like, easily. Like, that's one of the most sensitive parts that makes the motherboard function in the first place. So, what I would recommend is have someone who knows more or less how to build a computer with you, or on the phone, or have someone readily available just in case something does go wrong. Because in some, like, worst case scenarios, it can go wrong, especially with something as sensitive as, like, BIOS firmware and part compatibility. So really, I didn't have many concerns with this because I had, like, the motherboard when I got it, it was the latest revision of it. It had the Windows 11 ready, and it also said that, like, AMD Ryzen, like, 5000 series processors were going to be able to work on it. So wasn't that big of a concern, but if you do see that compatibility issue on the PC part picker list, just know that, just to be, like, aware that some motherboards aren't updated to the latest firmware. Like, their BIOS isn't updated to the latest firmware. So, when you boot it up and you have the CPU installed and you have all the case, you have the motherboard and stuff installed onto your case and you boot it up and it doesn't turn on, that's the issue. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's my incoherent rant on how I built my PC. Well, I didn't really go through a step-by-step process, but I did tell you about all the parts I used, so there's that. I hope you all enjoyed. I'm actually really excited to finally start making content on a better computer than using an old MacBook to edit my stuff. But yeah, there's more content coming. I'm still working out when I'm going to get a graphics card so I can start working on the next few episodes of the Sea of Thieves series. And even, like, gaming videos entirely, because now that I have this, I can actually use my capture card properly. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's only going to go up from here. Thank you all so much for watching, and here I'm going to show you my essentially the first boot that we did to the computer. I know my reaction isn't that exciting, but you'll see it. Here you go. Let's check it out. Boom. Ready?
Yep.
Get ready. We're about to blow up.
Right, the RGB.
I don't see the fans turning on. Well, the lights on the fans turning on for some reason. Alright. Now bye.